Welcome to the Liberation Lab podcast, insights and interviews for the disruptive educator. I am excited about today's episode. I want to start with a question. Has this year, has this month, has this past week served as a means to steal your joy? Have you lost sight of joy in your leadership distinctive as you serve as an educator, whatever facet, corner of our educational sphere that you work in? Have you been searching for your joy, trying to find it again? Well, this episode is just for, I want to remind us from the onset that joy is resistance. Joy is resistance. So for me, if you've been rocking with me for some time, you know that this is year one for me in the principal seat. While leadership isn't something that is foreign to me or recent, being in the principal seat carries with it its own set of expectations, carries with it its own set of pressures. And can I just be real with y'all and say that I found myself losing my joy? And if your leader, if the person who is supposed to be serving to steer the ship and hold things together loses their joy, then what can we expect from teachers? What can we expect from students? What can we expect from every single person that walks into your building? Joy has to be a conviction that we carry with us, something that we come back to, we measure, we hold dear to ourselves, that we keep it as a core conviction of our being. See, I fell into the belief that it was all about how hard I worked. You know, if you're not exhausted, you're not working hard enough. And while that is a complete and total myth, the truth is that joy is not about ease, it's about purpose, sustainability, and connection. And so I had to find myself leading on purpose. But why does this even matter? It matters because the cost of a joyless leadership on your staff, on your school, on your students, the cost is astronomical. How many leaders are running on empty because they're on this burnout cycle? I get the joy of serving um, alongside leaders in many different places and spaces. And one of the things that I found in my experience is there is a stark difference between a compliance culture and a connection culture. You see, compliance says that we have to do these things by these deadlines, meet these goals, and it doesn't matter what is it doesn't matter the cost. It doesn't matter what persons are harmed. We have to comply with this directive. And if you have been a part of a compliance culture, you know that there is intrinsically a difference between a leader and a manager. See, managers care about tasks over people. Managers care about the bottom line. Managers care about deadlines. And not to say that those things are bad things in and of themselves, but how you execute it matters. How you lead matters. Transformational leadership understands that you must have a sustainable way to change. You must lead through others. And sometimes that changes your timelines and your deadlines. Sometimes that changes your priority because at the end of the day, it's about the people that you have to lead. Joy isn't about ignoring those structures, but about rethinking how we can create the structures. So think about this with me. If you have the time, if you're not in your car, if you're sitting down and reflecting, I'd love for you to close your eyes and think about what a joyless school feels like. A joyless school should feel heavy when you walk in. It feels devoid of connection. It feels devoid of friendship or camaraderie. It feels devoid of a team. A joyless school culture will make you feel like you are losing yourself every time you walk into it. And this is what happens when leadership chooses to be transactional instead of transformational. Transactional leadership says you get this or you give me this and I give you that. Right? It's tit for tat. It is, I have to dangle the carrot in front of you. And not to say that we shouldn't um, pay teachers more, not to say that we shouldn't put ourselves in position to carry the one on our salary, as I like to say. That's not what I'm saying. But transactional leadership fails to lead for transformation. Transformation says we must keep our aspirational identity in front of us. We must continue to lead and serve in a way and says that there is more, not because we're driven by some ego, but because students deserve our very best. But here's the thing that I found in my experience is that joy comes off to folks anytime you say it like it is happiness. I want you to reframe that thinking. Happiness is fleeting. Happiness comes and goes. Happiness depends on your situations. It depends on what's happening in your life. Happiness depends on what's happening, but joy is a discipline. Joy is not about just fun. It's a commitment to leading with clarity and care. The struggle in many of our schools is that first one is really hard, clarity, because the priorities seem to change with the wind. You give teachers 1,001 things to do and then say, why aren't you doing 1,001? If we're really going to be about joy as a distinctive in our leadership, we've got to trim. Less is more. I am a firm believer in giving our educators, including principals, assistant principals, counselors, nurses, custodial staff, every single person that walks into your building, three priorities. Let's do three things well this year, and let's continue to measure these three things. It gives people a sense of clarity. Am I achieving these three things? And then from there, you can build out. Here's what else it does. It frees people up mentally and otherwise to focus their energy in these three areas, which will be received as a level of care. You really care and value me to focus my energy knowing how much is on my plate. And because we lead in a sphere of, or a specter, excuse me, a sector of our world where students' lives are on the line, we feel a pressure to have to continue to perform, to do. And these transactional cultures exhaust us all. But here's the next truth that we need to get into our systems: joy requires boundaries. It means that we must hold things with an open hand, knowing what to hold on to and what to let go of. Let me tell y'all the truth. I have had to let go of trying to win every battle. When it's connected to how I might see myself or my leadership distinctive, there are times where I am more ready to fight a battle, to win an argument, to communicate my point and it doesn't lend itself to the overall mission, you hear me? My boundary must be that I can't win every battle, and not every battle is worth it. I have to let it go. And that is real time in the moment as I sit here to record this episode. Joy is about learning what to let go of. Do you know what that allows me to do? Refocus my energy where it matters, on my staff, on my school, on my students. One of the things that I've learned or experienced in thus far in my journey is that sometimes accountability can seem like a morale crusher for folks. And what I mean is, if you've been allowed to do whatever, if your distinctive is more about comfort, more about complacency, than when anyone comes with a level of accountability, you are going to take it as an attack. I want you to think about it this way. It is as if you got into a car and you put it in neutral and floored it. I don't care how hard you press on the pedal. If you are in neutral, you will not move unless the ground beneath you causes you to move. So if I come next to you and I put my car in drive, no matter what I do, no matter how slow I go, any speed I go is too fast for you because you're in neutral. But here's the truth I need us to get: joy is not at odds with accountability, it helps strengthen it. When we refocus our attention on the why behind the decisions that we make, why is it that I'm asking you to do things like, for example, put a standard on the board, have an objective? It isn't so that you comply with some directive. It is so that we can ensure that our students are getting the very best of you in every classroom every single day, that there is a level of communication from no matter who walks in your room, that kids are going to get the most excellent education by way of you being there. That should bring joy to the task at hand. Hear me, I find that in our teacher spaces, in our education, we complain about these things because we've disconnected them from the why. It doesn't help anything. Why do we do it? Does if those things aren't normed and we take them as gospel, that every teacher is going to give students the very best education, that's not true. There are horrible teachers, and there are great ones. When we recenter joy, it is not at the expense of accountability. So the question that must come up for us is, okay, well, I hear you, Bobby, you're talking. I hear you sharing about joy, but how how do I do this? What can I do? I need us to redefine our wins. That's the first thing. Redefine our wins. We take data. Man, we are data crazy. Data for this, data for that, data for how much. And hear me, data is important. But what we measure shows our priorities. So it shouldn't just be about test scores and compliance, but it should be about relationships, trust, and sustainability. When is the last time you measured the level of trust that staff feel in your building? When is the last time you've done a measure regarding the relationships that folks feel? Am I saying that every teacher needs to get along with every other teacher? Absolutely not. But you should have somebody who you trust and build with, who pushes you to be your best self. I've told the story a couple of times and its truth still sticks with me. I was maybe about 13, 14 at the time, living in my grandparents' house. My grandparents primarily raised me. And my grandfather wakes me up at just ungodly hours on a Saturday. And it was always to do some task, to cut the grass, to help him with building something, putting things together. Um, and this particular Saturday, he had a special project, and that was building a garden on the side of the house. He gets me up. I'm rubbing the coal out my eyes. I had a quick breakfast and I got outside. When I get to the side of the house, he's like, "We're going to build a garden." And me being a lazy teenager, I'm like, "Man, give me the seed. Let me throw it down." And my grandfather lovingly called me boy. He'd say, "Boy, no. If you don't deal with the soil, nothing you plant will ever grow." What I'm saying there is that we must put ourselves in an environment. As a leader, you should be tilling the soil of your school so that folks who are dead set on being comfortable, who are not pushing themselves to be their best, they find it uncomfortable being in your school because you continue to till that soil for growth. If you're going to be planted here, you're going to grow. But hear me, there's a tension there. And I think we learn best, we build best in tension. So on one side, I'm holding on to redefining my wins. On the other side, I have to set boundaries that protect energy. And hear me, leadership, regardless of your position, should not require self sacrifice. That is a real time lesson for me. You should not have to exhaust yourself in these compliance based systems in order to be the sacrificial lamb for your staff and your students, for your teachers and co teachers. No, you should set boundaries that protect your energy. What are you going to let go of? What are the things you need to focus on that are going to yield the biggest results? See, part of joy means that we have to create a space where our staff and our students feel seen. No, like truly seen, not "Hi, thank you for being here." But that conversation that you had with that student, I know came from a real place because we had a conversation and you shared with me this thing about yourself, and I saw it come to life in the way that you handle our students. So thank you. Or the student who has chosen time and time again to allow gossip to lead them to a choice of violence, but they chose differently this time, and you acknowledge it because you see the growth in them. They should feel like they belong in the culture that you build. Often, this type of culture, though, is short circuited because we have this reactive posture. It is as though we rush from fire to fire to fire, trying to put them out, but we're not leading from a level of intention. A joy filled leadership is an intentional leadership. Where are you headed? What are the things that you will commit to doing today to lead with purpose? Dust off that mission statement that you spoke to at the beginning of the year, that vision statement that you spoke to at the beginning of the year, and figure out if you're still on that path and where do you need to calibrate in order to get back on that path. What is the data? There's that word again. Say. How do the staff feel? Do they feel as though they could come in? Hear me. Feelings are not facts. So there's a tension there. Feelings are not facts. So even though the staff feels a certain way, that may not be how things are leading. Sometimes people complain because it's the only thing they know how to do. So for you as a leader, what boundaries do you have to protect yourself from the folks who just gonna be complaining anyway? When we are so busy putting out fires, we fail to see if anyone's been burned. We move from thing to thing, checking the boxes. I felt that way even recently because We've had a round of observations. We have some other things going on. You get that done. And now there's another round of things and you're trying to get that done. But how are my people doing? How is my staff doing? So I've had to kind of like I used to watch the show Meerkat Manor. And the meerkats, when they forage and they get to work, they're down on all fours and they're kind of grabbing the things that they need. But when they want to see if danger's coming, when they want to see how they are in relation to their world, they stand up on their back 2 feet and look out over the horizon. I have not had a stand up horizon moment in quite some time. And I've had to force myself to do that because I had people around me who challenged me to do that, to refocus my energy. So who do you have with you that will hold you to a joy-filled leadership? So, what is the way that you're going to carry this out? The first thing you need to do is reflect. In schools, we are trained, encouraged to know our students, to know what makes them tick. And sometimes we fail to really know ourselves. What's one leadership practice that brings you joy? Is it the celebration of the students? Is it the coaching of your teachers? Is it the greeting your students at the door? Is it seeing them at lunch and connecting with them? What's the one thing that brings you joy? Refocus your energy and attention there. Why does that bring you joy? Explore it. Get curious. What are the things that bring you joy out of that moment? So not only reflect on that, but also make a commitment. What will you stop allowing to steal your joy? For me, I'm going to stop allowing compliance cultures to steal my joy. I'm about this work and we're going to leave for transformation. And so, yeah, if even if I have to exist or lead or serve or connect with others who are leading and serving in compliance based cultures, that's cool. We got to do what you got to do. But I will not allow it to steal my joy because I know what my purpose is in my position. And my leadership started before I got the title. Leadership that lasts isn't built on exhaustion. You shouldn't be like the person who, sees the miles to empty on their car and says, I can still make it. Leadership is not built on exhaustion, it is built on clarity, trust, and purpose. And about that second one, trust is most clearly seen and it starts with you. Do you really trust yourself to lead with purpose? Do you trust your ability? And if you fail to trust, are you doing the things necessary to build your capacity so you can trust? If you are struggling with joy, I want to remind you that joy is not a reward, it's a strategy. Joy is not a reward, it's a strategy, it's a conviction. It starts from within and it colors everything that you do and say. Hold fast to joy, y'all. It is the thing that will help us sprint through the finish line at the end of this year and look forward with expectation to next year. Joy is resistance. Let's keep pushing, y'all. Until next time.